The vast expanse of the Galactic Council's meeting chamber was an awe-inspiring sight. Suspended within the infinite blackness of space, a shimmering station hovered, its intricate architecture a blend of ancient stone and gleaming metallic surfaces. Representatives from hundreds of alien species filled the chamber, their holographic avatars hovering above seats, each of being more diverse and strange than the next. Among them were the brightest minds of the galaxy, charged with preserving peace and order in a universe that seemed always on the brink of chaos. At the center of the chamber, a giant holographic map of the galaxy projected above, pinpointing hundreds of star systems, but one stood out: Sol System, the humans' homeworld, Earth. The discussion was heated, and the tension in the air was palpable. For centuries, humanity had been nothing more than a curiosity, a dangerous anomaly in the galaxy, isolated, reckless, and uninviting. But now, their sudden expansion had drawn the attention of the Galactic Council. Their technology, once crude and primitive, had advanced with startling speed. No longer contained to their homeworld, humanity had begun to venture into the stars, setting foot on moons and planets that many of the galaxy's more peaceful species had never dared to approach. A booming voice echoed through the chamber. "The time has come," declared Xanthal, a towering, three-eyed member of the Thraxian Dominion, "to deal with this growing threat. These Deathworlders, as they call themselves, will destabilize the delicate balance of the galaxy. We must put an end to their reckless expansion before they become a true menace." The Thraxian Dominion had always been known for its ruthless efficiency. A militaristic empire of cold-blooded conquerors, they had crushed countless worlds beneath their boot heels. They were feared across the galaxy, and their fleets were among the most advanced in known space. Now, with humanity encroaching upon their territory, they had declared war. Across the room, a few voices of caution spoke up. Xyrix, a smaller, insectoid diplomat from the peaceful Elkaral species, cleared his throat, his many eyes flicking nervously. He was the lone voice of dissent, the one who dared to question the Dominion's path. "Are we certain," Xyrix's voice trembled slightly, "that humanity is truly a threat? I have heard stories of how they have survived on their planet, a place where most life would perish in mere moments. Earth is a death world, yes, but it is their home. They are resilient, unpredictable. What if we are underestimating them?" Laughter erupted from the council. Resilient? Unpredictable? The voice of Varkos, a massive four-armed warrior from the Arukan hive, was mocking. "Their planet is an ecological nightmare. How can we, a species that has adapted to centuries of peace, be expected to fear such a primitive, chaotic race? Their tactics are wild and unrefined," added Kthar, a sleek, serpentine alien from the Kirilan Federation. "They fight like cornered animals without reason or discipline. Surely, we will overwhelm them easily." Xyrix's antennae drooped. "But they are not like us. They adapt," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of a warning none of the others seemed willing to hear. The Thraxian Dominion's representative, Xanthal, sneered. "Do you speak of survival instincts, Xyrix? A primitive species that survives against the odds is not our concern. What matters is their aggression. Their presence on the frontier is a threat to our borders and to the peace of the galaxy. We have already waited too long. It's time to strike before they have the chance to strike us." Xyrix pressed his mandibles together in frustration. "But you're assuming they will strike first," he said. "We do not know what their true intentions are. Their military, though expanding, is still primitive compared to ours. They lack the cohesion of a true empire. They might—" "Their military is already expanding," Xanthal interrupted sharply. "We've intercepted their fleet movements. They are mining asteroids, building stations, and laying the groundwork for an interstellar war machine. The signs are clear. They will not wait for us to act first. They are already a threat to every peace-loving species in this council." Xyrix's antennae flickered anxiously. He had been following humanity's rise from the shadows, watching their progress, and the more he observed, the more worried he became. Humanity had never known peace. On their homeworld, Survival itself was a brutal, violent struggle. Their instincts were honed for warfare, for survival against predators and hostile environments. What happened when such a species turned its gaze toward the stars? In his mind, Xyrex saw the entire galaxy plunged into war. Not because humanity sought domination, but because they would refuse to lose. If the Thraxians miscalculated, if they underestimated humanity's fierce will to survive and protect their own, the consequences would be far worse than any of them could anticipate. The Council voted without further debate. The decision was swift. A unanimous vote in favor of the Thraxian Dominion's declaration of war. The galaxy's collective decision was made. Humanity's fate was sealed. Xyrex watched helplessly as the vote passed. His heart sank. It wasn't just that the Dominion had declared war. It was that they had dismissed the one thing Xyrex knew for certain about humans. They would not go down without a fight. As the council meeting disbanded, Xyrex's mind raced. There was still time to warn them, wasn't there? If he could just get the message out to the humans, maybe, just maybe, he could prevent the coming catastrophe. But it was already too late. A message flashed across his terminal. The Thraxian fleet was mobilizing, and they were headed straight for Sol System. Xyrex couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The galaxy had just woken a sleeping giant, and humanity's response, he feared, would be catastrophic. Xyrex's antennae twitched nervously as the light of the distant stars flickered across his screens. He had never felt this uneasy, not even during the darkest days of his people's wars. The decision to attack humanity, to invade Sol System, was a rash one, a decision made in arrogance, fueled by fear and overconfidence. The Council had ignored all the warnings, all the signs. But now, Xyrex could do nothing but watch as the Thraxian fleet mobilized. He had tried to warn them. He had tried to speak reason, to remind them of the one thing that made humans so unpredictable. Their survival instincts. Their capacity to adapt and overcome was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Yet here he was, powerless to stop the approaching storm. The holomap of the galaxy blinked to life on his console, showing the route the Thraxian fleet was taking. He watched as the ships moved through the void of space, like wolves circling a rabbit. Their target was clear, Sol System, Earth, and with it, everything humanity had worked for. Xyrex leaned back in his chair, his eyes glued to the map. He knew what would happen next. The Thraxian Dominion's fleets were swift, merciless, and well-equipped. They had crushed countless systems before with their overwhelming firepower. But humanity was different. They had something the Thraxians didn't, a ferocity born of necessity, a history of survival against the odds that made them nearly impossible to predict. He glanced at a comm panel, hesitating. There were rumors, whispers among the Elkaril diplomats that there had been certain human encounters with other species. Small skirmishes that had been brushed under the rug. But they were enough to make Xyrex's worries real. Humanity wasn't just a force to be reckoned with on the ground. Their ability to wage war in space had been growing exponentially. With a final, resigned click, Xyrex initiated a private transmission. He had to send a warning. Perhaps there was still time. If the humans could be alerted before the Thraxians arrived, they might have a chance. The transmission opened, and a human face appeared on the screen. The uniform, the stern expression, it was a military officer. She looked young, but there was something in her eyes, a sharpness that made Xyrex think of a predator. A wolf. He quickly spoke, his voice low and steady. This is Xyrex of the Elkaril, a member of the Galactic Council. I come with an urgent warning. The Thraxian Dominion is preparing to invade Sol System. Their fleet is already en route. They will not negotiate, and they will not show mercy. The human officer's expression hardened. We're aware of the Thraxians, she said, her voice sharp. They've made no secret of their intentions. The question is, why are you telling us this? Why should we trust you? Xyrex sighed, his mandibles clicking. Because if you don't act quickly, they will destroy you. They think you're a primitive species, that your military is nothing more than a few scattered ships. They're wrong. You've survived on a death world. You've endured chaos and bloodshed for centuries. The Thraxians will make a fatal mistake if they underestimate you, The officer seemed to consider his words, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that you don't wait for them to attack," Zyrex said urgently. "Prepare yourselves. Use the element of surprise. The Thraxian fleets will not expect a counterattack, especially not from a species like yours. Humanity has one advantage: your unpredictability. If you can take the initiative, you might be able to turn the tide before they make their move." She didn't respond immediately, the silence hanging heavy between them. Zyrex could almost see the wheels turning in her mind, weighing the risks, calculating the options. Finally, the officer spoke again. "Thank you for the warning, Zyrex. We'll take it under consideration. But don't think for a second that we're unprepared. We've been getting ready for this for years." Zyrex blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" The officer smiled, a sharp, knowing smile. "You clearly don't know much about us. Do you? We've been preparing for war with the galaxy for a long time now. And when it comes, we won't just defend ourselves. We'll make sure you regret ever thinking we were an easy target." Zyrex's heart skipped a beat. "You've been preparing for this 4 years?" he repeated, more to himself than to her. The human officer's smile grew wider. "You'll find out soon enough. Goodbye, Zyrex." The transmission cut off, leaving Zyrex staring at the blank screen. He had expected caution, maybe even disbelief. But what he had received was far different: confidence. Humanity had been preparing for something, and whatever it wasn't just defense. A chill ran down his spine. He had feared this moment. Humanity wasn't just a threat. They were a storm waiting to break loose, and Zyrex had a sinking feeling that the galaxy was about to find out just how dangerous they truly were. The Thraxian Dominion was walking into a trap, and they had no idea. The Thraxian fleet approached the outskirts of the Sol system, its massive warships cutting through the void like a razor through flesh. Commander Varlex stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, the Dominion's Wrath, overseeing the final preparations for the invasion. The stars outside were dim, the soft blue glow of the nearby gas giants casting eerie shadows across the metallic surfaces of the command deck. Varlex's eyes scanned the tactical readouts in front of him. The fleet was ready. The Thraxian Dominion had never been more powerful, and they had faced less formidable foes before. Humanity, according to the latest intelligence, was just a primitive species, barely scratching the surface of galactic technology. It would be easy, swift, he thought, but a small voice in the back of his mind nagged at him. The transmission from Zyrex, the Elkaril diplomat, had unsettled him. Zyrex had urged him to proceed with caution, to respect the humans' unpredictable nature. "They've survived on a death world," the Elkaril had said, "and they've been preparing for something like this for years." Varlex shook his head. It was irrelevant. His orders were clear. The Thraxian fleet was to proceed, and humanity would be subdued, no matter the cost. "Commander," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was his second-in-command, Thara, standing at his side, her sharp gaze fixed on the console in front of her. "We're entering the Sol system. The human fleet is still unreported. Should we expect immediate resistance?" Varlex's mandibles clicked in thought. "I don't believe so. Their ships are primitive. They don't even have shields that can withstand our firepower. But we must be vigilant." The Elkaril's warnings, while irrelevant, were insistent. "We cannot underestimate them." Thara nodded, but she looked unconvinced. "Underestimate them? We've crushed entire species more advanced than these humans. This will be easy." Varlex glanced at the viewport, his cold eyes narrowing as the blue glow of Earth's atmosphere began to shine through the darkness. It was almost time. His instincts screamed that something was wrong, but his confidence in the fleet, in the power of the Thraxian Dominion, kept him steady. The ships closed in, and the first wave of automated probes was released, scanning the inner system for any sign of human activity. They were just about to enter the planet's orbit when the calm of the silence was shattered by an alert. "Commander, we have multiple contacts. Incoming. Fast." Varlex's eyes snapped to the console. Dozens of blips appeared on the screen. The human ships weren't as primitive as they'd thought. The first few ships were small, their silhouettes resembling crude fighter crafts, but their speed and maneuverability were beyond anything the Thraxians had expected. Before Varlex could issue an order, the first volley of fire erupted from the human ships, catching the Thraxian fleet off guard. The energy blasts, though weak in comparison to the Thraxian weaponry, still managed to pierce the hulls of several scouts. "Return fire! Now!" Varlex barked. The Thraxian fleet retaliated with overwhelming force, unleashing a barrage of plasma that decimated the human fighters in seconds. But then the real surprise came. From the shadows of the asteroids and debris fields in the system, a massive, heavily armed human warship appeared, its dark hull gleaming with an alien energy. The Colossus, the pride of the human navy. "Impossible," Thera whispered, her eyes wide. The Colossus was unlike anything they had seen before. Its weapons were synchronized, designed for precision, and the firepower it unleashed tore through Thraxian shields like paper. "Deploy the interceptors. All ships, focus on that warship," Varlex ordered, his voice hardening as he watched the battle unfold. The Colossus took out another Thraxian destroyer with ease, its weapons unrelenting, precise. The Thraxians had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were paying the price. The tide of battle was shifting. The human fleet was far from helpless. Their tactics were brutal and unorthodox, each strike designed to overwhelm and confuse. Varlex watched, his mandibles clenching, as his fleet struggled to keep up. The humans were not the easy targets they had expected. The storm Xyrix had warned them about was already upon them, and they were at its mercy. Varlex's thoughts raced. The humans had not only survived, they were fighting back. And for the first time in his life, he realized that victory was no longer certain. The battle raged in the void, a deadly ballet of fire and metal. The Thraxian fleet, once poised for an easy conquest, was now faltering. Varlex stood at the command center of the Dominion's wrath, his eyes glued to the chaos unfolding on the holoscreens. His fleet was taking heavy losses, with more and more ships disintegrating under the assault of the human weapons. "Damage reports coming in, Commander." Thera's voice was strained, but steady. "The Colossus is engaging our left flank. Our shields are weakening." Varlex's mandibles clicked with frustration. This should have been a simple campaign, swift, overwhelming. But the humans, this Deathworlder species, were proving to be something altogether different. Their fleet tactics were unpredictable, their ships fast and relentless. The Colossus was like a shadow, a force of nature, devastating everything in its path. "Can we push them back?" Varlex asked, trying to regain his composure. "We're trying, but their interceptors, smaller craft, are harrying us at every turn. They've adapted to our movements faster than we anticipated. It's like they knew exactly what we'd do," Thera responded, her voice tinged with a rare note of uncertainty. Varlex's mind raced. He had underestimated the humans, dismissed them as primitive and weak, but they were anything but. The reports from his scouts told a different story. These humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving in the chaos. They'd taken losses, but they were showing no sign of retreat. If anything, they were rallying with every Thraxian ship they destroyed. As Varlex turned to look at the tactical map, his heart sank. The humans had not only engaged in an unexpected defensive war, but they had also begun to outmaneuver them. The human fighters, with their advanced tech and seemingly instinctual tactics, were systematically picking off the weaker Thraxian ships. "Initiate evasive maneuvers," Varlex barked, slamming his fist onto the console. But his voice held no confidence now. The humans were relentless, adapting faster than any enemy he had ever faced. Thera looked up, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "Commander, we need to retreat. We're losing too many ships." For the first time, Varlex hesitated. Retreat? The thought had never crossed his mind until now. His instincts screamed that a Thraxian retreat would be a disgrace, a failure. But looking at the damage being done to his fleet, seeing the might of the Colossus tear through another one of his warships, a harsh realization hit him. "We can't win this battle." His voice was quieter now, almost to himself. He glanced at the human warship again. Its armor was battered, but it kept coming, relentless in its pursuit. As if sensing his thoughts, Thra spoke again. "We're outmatched, Commander. These Deathworlders, they know their environment better than we thought. They've adapted, learned from every strike. And they fight like nothing we've seen." Varlex stared at the chaos outside. The human fleet wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting with something more. A fierce, unyielding drive to protect their world, to defend their way of life. The cold calculation that usually guided Varlex's decisions seemed alien in the face of this raw, untamable fury. The humans were not merely surviving, they were thriving on their death world, and they were now showing the galaxy what that truly meant. His gaze hardened. He had made a critical mistake. The Thraxian Dominion prided itself on its intelligence, its mastery over the battlefield. But it had overlooked the most important factor: resolve. The humans were not just fighting for territory or conquest, they were fighting for their existence. Varlex knew that if he did not act quickly, the Thraxian fleet would be completely destroyed. The humans had proven that they could not only survive in this brutal battle, but that they could win. "We're pulling back," he finally ordered, his voice grim. "All ships, initiate full retreat. We've underestimated the enemy, but we'll learn. We will return." Thra's eyes widened, disbelief crossing her features. "Commander, you're retreating?" Varlex's mandibles clicked sharply in frustration. "We'll live to fight another day, Thra. But not if we stay here. This battle is lost." The Thraxian fleet began to withdraw, leaving behind the wreckage of their once proud armada. As they retreated, Varlex's mind whirled. He had learned the true cost of underestimating a species that had been forged in the crucible of their death world. The humans were not weak, they were stronger than anything the galaxy had yet seen. And this was just the beginning.